want to say welcome to the second day of our first ever Alkali Beauty Alkali event. I am 𝒍𝒊𝒉. I am your Director of Education, and I am really excited to be hosting today. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that from now until March 31st, you will be receiving 55% off of $50 or more on your purchases on 𝒂𝒊𝒉.com using the code ALKALIVE. Also, pretty much the second we are done here with the oh so fabulous Willy, I will be going on to the Alkali Beauty main page, and we are raffling off a pair of the Alkali Sharkfin Shears. I know, I'm so excited. So definitely make sure that you are tuning in for that, and everybody is already registered for that, and it's gonna be awesome. So I am gonna turn this all over to Willy, who is the Director of Education for Sharkfin Shears. So take it away.
Thank you, Danielle. Hey, everybody. My name's Willy. I'm the Director of Education for Sharkfin Shears. Happy to be with you today. I'm so honored and stoked at the same time. Thank you, Alkali. Thank you, Danielle, for having me on. Hopefully I remember everything that I'm supposed to do today. And if not, I apologize in advance, right? So
that's why there's two of us.
Yeah, that's what's up. So I know what products I'm using, and I know how to talk about those, and I know what haircut I'm doing and how to achieve the final look. So I think we're in a pretty safe space, right?
That's all you need.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, when I was asked to be part of this, I really thought, like, what can I do to bring something different to the classes that are going on? And obviously we're a shear company, so I'm thinking shear over comb, right? So the first thing I want to do is say that while I believe this class will be fun and fantastic and you can learn a lot, I do understand that when it comes to shear over comb in a virtual class like this, it's going to be hard to tell the difference with some stuff on a mannequin, right? But what we can walk away with is some fundamentals from this class. Things I want to just throw out right from the beginning is everything I'm going to do today for Oscar, which is our version of a French crop. So here's a finished Oscar that I've done a couple weeks ago for one of our school classes, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so everything I'm doing is with a shear. So I'm going to use a 7-inch non-swivel straight blade for all my scissor over comb, and then a 28 tooth and a 15 tooth texturizer, believe it or not, to achieve this look.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to talk about are tools just for a minute.
Perfect.
And the reason I want to talk about tools is because I believe it's important to know and understand why you're using the tool that you're using. So anytime I do scissor over comb, regardless of what comb I use, I want to make sure that it has a straight spine. And when I say a straight spine, I'm not referring to the comb here. I'm actually referring to where the teeth meet the comb, okay? And the reason I want that spine to be straight is when I'm combing through the hair, I want all of it to fall over the spine in the same shape. So a lot of combs have like this small curve to them, right? And when you're going through the hair, if you're cutting hair over here versus hair over here, it's actually a different shape because it's elevated differently away from the head. So if you're new to shear over comb, or even if you're not and you're just looking to step up your game, one thing I would urge you to think about is your tools, right? Because they do affect the outcome of your haircut. And I know this may seem minimal, but the more we're cutting hair scissor over comb, the more these things start to show up, okay? So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about are two great exercises to do if you're not familiar with scissor over comb. And the reason I talk about that is I learned this in school, right? So one of those smooth scissor over comb haircuts, you know, you see somebody doing it and you see all the open and closing motion is just with the thumb, right? It's nice and smooth. It's super important that when you're doing scissor over comb, you can just transition all the way up the head wherever you need to be. If you start to stop, or it's real jerky, so to speak, you're going to end up with lines in the hair that you're going to have to keep going over to blend them out, blend them out, blend them out. So a great little exercise number one is if you take out your shear, stick it on your finger where the still blade is, and then just practice opening and closing your shear with just your thumb. And ergonomically speaking, this is what we want to do too, because this is how I talk, which you're going to find out, right? This is how I open and close a shear. So this reduces the stress in our fingers and our hands, thus reducing carpal tunnel tendonitis, finger fatigue.
Those are
Okay.
such important things. Someone was asking, what combs do you like the most?
So I have two combs that I use, two different styles of combs that I use depending on how long it is. So I'm a huge 𝒌𝒆 fan. I'm not going to lie. Their combs are amazing, but also an educator that I love to work with, his name is Anthony Edge. He has a fabulous orange comb that he came out with. And regardless of what comb I'm using, especially for scissor over comb, the number one thing I'm paying attention to is the spine, the internal shape of the spine. And also there's a real cool taper comb out there. You've seen it before. They're really wide at one end and they taper down really fine at the other end. So not only does that comb taper from end to end, but also the further down it gets to the thin side, the thinner the spine is. So you can get in and really get real close if you're getting in there real nice and tight.
Oh,
okay.
Perfect.
So that's a great question. There are other fabulous combs out there. I don't work with 𝒌𝒆 or, get commission or anything like that from Anthony Edge. It's just my preferences over the years. So the first exercise is this one, right? And then after that, what I love about scissor over comb is the exercise we're going to do next. So I hold the comb with my fingers and I tend to hold it like this so I can tilt it in and out really easy, as opposed to holding it like this, trying to tilt it in and out. So I tend to hold my comb like this, and then I can tilt the comb in and out. Remember, your comb is your guard, just like with a clipper, right? So that guard is going to protect you. The further up the head we get, the more you can start to change that shape of the comb, and you start protecting length or building weight, however you want to look at it. Okay.
That's a really good way to put that. I wouldn't have actually thought of it that way. So that's awesome.
So the second exercise after we get used to opening and closing a shear pretty fluidly is I like to put the hand I hold my comb in, my pointer finger or my index finger rests completely against it, right? So then what happens is, and I know that the comb's on the wrong side, but I'm showing you this way so you can see it, is it stabilizes. So then my cutting edge just stays even with the spine of my comb. See how it's not going up or down like this? It stays right on the spine of my comb, right up against the comb, and I just cut. Okay? So that's a really good exercise to practice if you want to get good at scissor over comb. The second reason I wanted to do a scissor over comb class is every salon I've ever worked in, there's been a stylist who says, I don't do men's hair, or I don't do barbering. And I've always thought to myself, why not? It's such a great way to fill in those half an hour spots in your book when someone's processing, or just throughout the day where you have these weird half an hour spots around your color. So I've found through talking with them, generally they're not comfortable because they haven't done a lot of barbering. So today's class is going to focus on the fundamentals. So if you're one of those people, or you're experienced at scissor over comb, you're going to hear a lot of the same thing and see a lot of the same techniques. Okay, so just two real simple things here. Once you get that down, then the practice becomes here and keeping that still edge right on line with the spine of your comb. Okay, so let's cut some hair. That's enough talking. we have our wonderful mannequin here. So all I've done here is I've sectioned Oscar off on the round of the head. And then when I do barbering, I still drop down through the crown, family, just to protect myself. Usually, if I'm seeing a client and they have any type of swirl or anything kind of funky or fun going on with their hair, it tends to be through the crown or around the hairline. So I always protect myself by just dropping down just below the drop back crown, and then I come back around up through what would be the recession. I can find that by just placing my comb flat on the head, and wherever the comb comes off, that's where my parting is going to start. Okay?
Oh, perfect.
So, pretty straightforward. So when I go in here, when I was in the salon full time, I would say about 50% of the haircuts I did that were considered barbering, whether it was male or female or he, she, they, or them, it didn't matter. It was barbering, it was short hair. About 50% of them didn't want clippers. And the reason they didn't want clippers is because clippers are uniform. So when I go through, everything's nice and uniform. A lot of my guests, when I was in the salon full time, they want movement with the hair. So they want it short, but they want to see movement and texture to the hair. So that's what we're trying to accomplish today. This isn't, you know, if you want to go in with a clipper, then go in with a clipper, but this is for that guest who wants to have a little length and a little texture and movement to the hair. So I'm just going to go in right around the sideburn. All of my length is determined in the consultation. So the consultation is the most important part of the haircut. I'm just going to go right in here. And again, family, I understand that this particular thing is on a mannequin. So this class is all about seeing the technique and seeing how we scissor over comb and how that's nice and sleek, right? And we can go in here and start doing this. Now, what's important here is the further up the head I go, the more my comb's going to start to come out. So I'm building weight or creating length by angling my comb, just like I would if I was using a clipper. I tend to wash that just below the crown or just below the round of the head so I can preserve all this length through here. So you can see all this weight. We're going to take care of all that weight with a texturizing shear because I want to remove length, but I still want to have texture and movement. So this is almost going to be like a taper where I'm going to keep everything nice and tight around the hairline and just below the occipital, right? And you'll see that technique, my fingers just resting right on the comb, and my left hand is creating the guide or the length as I move up. And the way it's doing that is by elevating the comb or changing the angle of the comb. One thing you can also do is rest the spine of the comb directly on the head. And then as you move up, your comb stays nice and still because it's resting on the scalp. That way we can just keep everything nice and smooth as we're going through. And you see, I just start pulling up and away from the head as I want to start creating weight. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's perfect. And I was going to say too, you're using, you said a 7-inch shear, correct?
I am. I'm using, the only shear that I use that's non-swivel is my 7-inch shear that I barber with. And the reason for that is everything's right here on the side of the head, right? So my wrist stays nice and straight and my elbow stays in by my side. Anytime I do long hair, I switch to a swivel shear. Anytime I'm cutting the top of the head, so you're going to see me switch to a swivel shear when I get to the top. So that's a good catch, Danielle, and a good catch by me with that comb.
That was good.
So as we move to the top of the head, you're actually going to see me change to a different shear style or handle style because ergonomically speaking, it's going to leave me in a better position. So if you've never seen a swivel in action up close, you're going to get to see that today. And I'm also going to talk about why. And it all has to do with ergonomics, family. Here at Sharkfin, we believe that a happy stylist is a healthy stylist, and a healthy stylist is a wealthy stylist, right? We want to give you the freedom and creativity behind the chair to cut in a comfortable position, but not jeopardize the integrity of the haircut or your health.
Oh, so someone was saying, so you're keeping the spine to the scalp and pulling the teeth out is kind of how you're going around.
Right, right. This is the part that doesn't translate real well, but the spine of my comb is literally resting on the scalp of the head. And then as I move, depending on where I want to start building weight, right, or go longer, as I move, that's when I start angling the comb out.
Okay, perfect. And so also anyone that's got any questions, please type them into the chat and I'm going to be shouting them out at Willy while he's cutting away there.
If she can get a word in edgewise, I like.
I mean, I have a yell in my name for a reason. You've seen my emails. Everything I send you is like exclamation points. So I think we're both fairly loud people.
So what you see here, family, is even with scissor over comb, if I keep working this, look how tight. That's not a good angle. I'm sorry. That's better. If I keep working this, I can get in here almost to scalp with shears. So we can go in. I mean, that's tiny. So then we start working around the ear. As I work around the ear, now I can start going in at an angle to make it easier to work around the ear. But again, what I want to be aware of here is I'm building weight, family, through here all the way around. And the reason I'm building that weight is because I want that hair to be able to push forward. I want to preserve that length. So I have all this texture through here, and I need length to be able to do that, if it makes sense. So this really becomes more about visually seeing what you want to do. And then what I like to say is scissor over comb. You know, I could do this with clippers. I really could. But for me, there's a real freedom to cutting hair like this. You know what I mean? And again, it allows us to add that texture and weight through here that if I just went in and clippered this is all be uniform. It'd be a 1 or it'd be a 2 or it'd be a 3. And the shorter it gets, the less movement and texture it has, right? So that's why we're talking specifically shear over comb.
Now, is this ideal for pretty much any hair type and texture, or do you feel like it works better for certain people?
This could be done on anybody, anyone. The only thing that would change what I do is if they had thick, coarse, curly hair, I may not cut it. I may cut it dry instead of damp.
Oh, okay. That's a good tip too.
There's really no texture or density that you can't do this on, because we're not using a razor that's going to blow up the cuticle. You know, it's just more to, you know, you got to pay attention to really curl pattern at that point, right? The shorter you go, the more the curl pattern is going to stick out. So, you know, you just have to keep that in mind as far as how long or how short you want to take it.
Okay, awesome.
Just like you could clipper anybody's hair, right? You can use clippers on anybody's hair. Doesn't matter density, texture. Now, with that being said, if somebody has thinner hair, you're going to have to be a little more cautious, right? At thin as in the density and thickness, then you might have to be a little more cautious, because scissor over comb in thin hair, it's really easy to start showing steps in the hair. So,
yeah, that's definitely a thing that's happened.
So what I might do with someone with thinner textured hair, right, is I might use a 28 tooth texturizer for the entire haircut, believe it or not. And the reason for that is a 28 tooth texturizer goes from removing bulk and weight to cutting hair really quickly in short hair. Does that make sense? So 1 or 2 passes, I've removed weight. 3 or 4 passes, I'm starting to remove weight and length.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I also don't get those step marks or steps or lines, if you will, in the thinner textured hair. So you see here, I'm stopping at it just below the round of the head, because I want all this weight in here, all the way around. I'm going to go in here. My comb is no longer resting. What's the best angle here? That's better. My comb is no longer resting on the scalp, because I have enough length through here that when I pull out, it comes away. But you saw that line in there with that weight. I can go in and get rid of that with shear over comb with a regular cutting shear, or I can get rid of it with a texturizer. So here in a minute, so we're really round right now through the recession, which is what I want, because I want all that length in there, right? All that roundness through there. Now I'm going to switch to a 28 tooth. And I'm not kidding. I know a lot of people always question with this, but I learned how to cut the school I went to, they gave us clippers while we were in school, and they told us to take them home, that we wouldn't be using them. They said that anyone could cut hair with clippers. We were going to learn how to cut hair scissor over comb.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's pretty bold. I don't know how to cut hair, because I didn't. time, nor did I know how to do it with clippers. But I'm really thankful for this because it helped me understand the roadmap of the head. It helped me understand things I could and couldn't achieve with a shear. And the reality is, if I have the right comb, I can do the exact same thing, shear over comb, as I could with clippers. It just takes forever, right? So then we start talking efficiency. Not, if your guest doesn't care about having movement and texture throughout the haircut, then use clippers, because you can just bang it out really quickly. And when I say bang it out really quickly, I don't mean jeopardizing the integrity of the haircut. It's just quicker to do, right? So even with a texturizer, my motion stays the same, right? I go in, stays at the spine of the comb. All that opens is my thumb. And then we come in and we just want to remove that weight so it's not so round. Again, family, if you're not real seasoned with texturizers, there is a purpose for a texturizer. You want to know how to use them, but it won't destroy the hair if you use it properly and you have the right kind. So all I'm doing now is, you see them going in, and I'm just relieving all that weight, so we don't have that hard round shape here anymore like we do on this side, because I still need to take that weight out.
That's super cool. I like that. And I like too that you're talking about how it is important. Like, I feel like I taught in cosmetology schools, and I taught in one school where there were like, you're never going to use your texture shear. And then I went to another school where they were like, no, we're going to show you how to properly use it. And I think that's the difference, is making sure if you properly know how to use your tool, much like any other tool, you can have really successful results. And it's nice seeing that done with scissor over comb. So this is super cool.
It's the same technique, right?
Yeah.
Same technique. It's just the thumb moving, fingers resting on the spine of the comb. Scissor over comb. Again, the idea here is your shear doesn't want to be above or below. You want that cutting blade to rest right at the spine of the comb. So when you open and close, it's right there.
Perfect.
So now we're just going through and we're removing some of that weight, because I don't want it to be so round, but I want that length in there, so I can pull that forward when I'm styling the hair. So
Oscar's looking good there.
Break down all that weight, right?
Yeah.
So then we want that shape. We want to build weight or go from short to long, right? So this is that shape you're going to have, and that's what we want. So you could see this is a haircut you could really easily, with a couple of changes to the top, you could go into that pixie category as well, just depending on how short or how long you want to take it. It's all about texture and movement, right? So if we want it to be a little more feminine, we go in and we leave that round shape, and we leave the top longer. It's a little bit textured, and we have a pixie. If we want it to be a little more masculine, then we can go in and keep it kind of square, which is what we're going to do on the top as well.
Super cool. So this is very versatile.
Very, very versatile, right? So I cut this haircut for a school the other night. I did a cut from our collection called the Nate, which is it's just a pompadour, right? And I stopped, and just really easily, just in styling the hair, we can throw this into a really rad haircut. It can be very pixied. It can be very, it can really push the boundaries depending on what you want to do with this haircut. So currently on top, we have long square layers, and we kind of have that surfer look to it, right? You take this a little bit shorter, and we go into that textured pixie category right off the bat. So understanding this, scissor over comb, and then understanding what we're going to do with the top, just a few alterations in how we cut and where we elevate the hair to, and we go from maybe what's considered a more masculine haircut to a more feminine haircut. So it's a really good skill set to have if you're looking to do both short and long hair. So with Oscar, I just prepped Oscar with foreplay. I'm a huge fan of foreplay. I'm all about making sure that the consistency, the saturation of the haircut stays the same throughout, right? I'm a big advocate if you start a haircut dry, it should be finished dry. If you start a haircut wet, it should stay consistently wet throughout the haircut. So if you happen to be a little slower, it's no big deal to wet the hair down, right, as you're going through the haircut. I think sometimes we miss that, right? We're so focused on what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve that sometimes we miss these small things that can really have a big impact on how the haircut looks when we're done. So you're going to see me drop everything down and comb everything forward. We're going to do something today called alternating layers. Some of you may be aware of alternating layers or you've done it before, especially if you cut long curly hair, right? So we're going to alternate short, long, and then we're going to do something where we have short bits inside of the long bits, inside of the short bits, inside of the long bits. It sounds really confusing, but I promise you it's not, okay? And just real quick, I'll throw this out to everyone watching. What's short hair do to long hair?
Oh, it's going to push everybody.
That's right. It's going to push it, right? So if we're trying to add we're trying to add texture, movement, which is, everything that a crop is about, right? We want that texture and movement throughout the haircut. Then we want short, long, and it's just going to help us achieve that volume without having to, cake product in the hair. I'm also a big advocate for, I don't know why, I wore a dark sweater, dark mannequin. I apologize. We'll change that right now.
So, you just wanted a wardrobe change. It's fine. We accept you.
So I'm a big advocate for when we're cutting hair, you should be able to see what you want from the cut before you ever stick a round brush or product to it. If you want volume and movement, then put the volume and movement in when you're cutting it. That way, when you go back to style it, that shape is already there. The short, the short pushing the long, or whatever it is we're trying to achieve, that's already there. All we have to do now is just make it even more beautiful with product and heat. Make sense?
Yep.
So you see the shape we have here now, right? I want to keep that length. I want to connect the back to the top. So I just pulled hair from back here straight up, okay? And that becomes my guide. Now you'll see I've switched to a swivel shear now. And the reason I've switched to a swivel shear is we're going to do square layers on top, which means we're going to elevate the hair straight up, okay? We're going to come in and we're going to cut it. So if I was using a non-swivel shear, this is what that would look like, family, right? Anytime my elbow comes past parallel with my shoulder, my posture changes, which is going to cause me issues in my back, my knee, my foot. Also, I have all this strain and stress through my neck and my shoulder. So I can come in here now and I can just cut. Or in this case, I can point cut to the length I want without jeopardizing my wrist health. So
someone was saying too, they're like, cowlicks can be scary. So
they certainly can. And mannequins are great because they don't talk back, but sometimes like these pivot point mannequins are so good, there's never a swirl or a weird hair pattern in it. You know what I mean? So it can also be tough to learn on in that sense as well. So now we're going to split the top section into 4. Okay. So we're going to take horizontal sections or vertical, depending on where you're standing. Okay. Section 1, twist and pull this way. Section 2, twist and pull this way. Section 3, twist and pull the same way as section 1. And then section 4, twist and pull the same way as section 2. Is that coming through on the screen?
Yeah, would you maybe want to tilt the head down a little bit just so we can see that? Perfect.
So you have section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4, and then I have a bang in here, okay?
Perfect.
That's section 5. Leave it out. That's its own monster. We're going to talk about so many variations we can use for this, okay? Also, see how all that weight that I left through there on the sides, see how that's left out? I want to leave all that out, okay? On both sides. Cool?
That's perfect.
Now, this is where it gets confusing. We're going to do short, long, and then bang. Or long, short. It's up to you. You can figure that out. So sections 1 and 3 are going to be the same length. Sections 2 and 4 are going to be the same length. They're either going to be shorter or longer. So again, we're doing short, long. So it's going to create all that movement. And then we're going to go in with a texturizer after that. And we're going to have short inside of each one as well. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're just going to pull everything straight up. This is section 1, cut. Straight up. My guide comes from the back of the haircut, okay? Everything's elevated 90 degrees from head shape, and we're cutting square. So that means as you work to the round of the head, if we're cutting square, we have to make up for that, because if we pull everything square here, it's going to be shorter in the middle and longer here. We want it to be square all the way through. Does that make sense? So you have to pay attention to the round of the heads, because that hair will come up higher. We want it to be a consistent length all the way throughout. So make sure you make up for that. I make up for it with body position and finger position, right? So you almost want to kind of purposely pull up. We're still in section 1. This is just my second subsection in section 1. Get out of there, section 2. I'm going to turn it. Okay. You could do this by point cutting if you want. Point cutting is going to add even more texture, right? And more movement. It's completely up to you. It all depends on, if I want a point cut, I can come in here like this. So I'm not up here like this. I can just come in and point cut. It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. There are so many variations of this.
No, this is all super cool. I'm going to let you know too, you're at your half an hour mark, because time flies when we're having fun. But this is really cool. And I like that you're able to do where you have variations of, you can do point cutting, or you could do this. Like it's nice that you can show a technique that's going to be versatile.
Yes. And remember, section 2 is either shorter or longer than section 1. And guess what that means? That means you're going to cut it to length. You're not going to have a guide for that. You're going to be free cutting or whatever it is you want to call it, right? Because our guide for section 1 comes from the crown, so we can connect it. So then my section 2 is shorter than section 1. So there's no guide for that. You're doing it visually, okay? So you get to determine that. Now I get that hair out of the way. Now section 3, right, is the same length as section 1. So for me, I can't over direct this back to section 1 to try to get that length, because it's not going to be the same. So I just have to go in, measure section 1, come into section 3, make that measure, and cut.
It's a very visual haircut.
Very visual.
Oh, this is super cool. I'm like getting really excited to try this out, and I think everyone else is too.
Very visual. So you'll start having to move hair around. It can become a little difficult, especially the first couple of times you do it. So maybe you want to use some clips to section them out of the way, right? That's all up to you. So I am now into section 4, which is going to be short. Forgive the finger there. And just move with the hair. Again, making sure we're staying square. Okay. Now, when we comb all this forward, look at all that texture in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. And you want to see the hair flipping around. Like you want to see it flipping about, doing its thing, right? You want to see texture and movement in there, because then when I go to put some plump and some flirt in here, it's just gonna maximize that texture and movement.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, plump, especially for like short hair pixie cuts and stuff. I live for that. It's amazing.
Love it. So I don't know how many, if you've seen this, but what's going on in the crop world right now is you have a lot of artists who are putting little teardrop shapes in the bang, right? They're doing all kinds of fun stuff. This is where you get to determine what you want to do with that. For me, I like to come in here. I'm just going to get rid of all this length by pulling everything straight forward. Point cutting. That shears resting right on my finger, going right across. And you see that edge there, that weight that we brought forward. So now as I start seeing where that's going to go and how short I actually am on top, then I can start cutting into that on the sides.
Oh, and I've got a couple of questions for you too. Someone asked, do you want to stay within a range between the short and long sections?
No, well, yes. The more salon friendly you want the haircut to be, the more the closer you want those lengths to be. So, you know, if section 1 is 2 inches and section 2 is shorter, it's probably not going to be an inch long, because otherwise it's going to be a more creative, avant-garde style of haircut. So really what determines that is the consultation with the guest and what they want to be able to do. Some people will want to have this length and weight through here to pull forward. Some people won't. Some people may want it to just stick straight up on its own, the shorter pieces. So you get to determine that. If you want it to be a little more salon friendly, look at the texture of the hair. If it's curly, how short it's going to spring up after you cut it and all that stuff, because most guests don't want it to be too gnarly or too textured.
Oh, perfect. And then someone else was asking, do you have to stay square for a lady's cut as well?
No, definitely not. Right. And you don't have to stay, you could go round with the men's cut. It's all your guest, right? So I don't want to just be like, oh, we're just cutting hair today and not give you some sort of technique. So the easy thing to do, because this mannequin is male, that we're doing square layers. You can do whatever you want. That's what's fun about this. So if you want it to be a little more feminine, leave it a little more round. Follow the shape of the head. If you want to follow the shape of the head, super easy. You can just pull everything straight up. But then when you get into these sides, you just start following the shape of the head all the way around. Just like you would in long layers, right? Pull everything out 90 from where it lives. And what do you have at the end?
You get that perfect, soft, round goodness going on.
Correct. So you see on this side, and I did this purposely, on this side, we've shortened all that weight through there, and it's nice and flows right into the bang, right? It's just like you already see that hair pushing. You already see a nice seam. On this side, I left it a little longer. You start to pull this forward. Now you can start talking about cutting in shapes or cutting in more movement. So it's really up to you what you want to do. So I can go in here and just slide cut a little. Point cut a little. If you take anything away from this class, it's be creative, right?
That's super. And I think that's like the great thing too, is I appreciate that you're showing techniques because, you know, not everything's just the same in a box. You can take it and you can really you can make it what works for you, for your guest, be really creative, or as you were saying, being a little more salon friendly. I live in Austin where the motto is keep Austin weird. So I'll definitely be doing something fun with this, but this is really cool.
We provide exclusive education for 𝒘𝒃𝒂𝒕, and this is one of the haircuts we did specifically for them because it's really easy to convert this to feminine, masculine, right? It's really easy. You can see if I just left this a little longer and we took it to a side, this is really easy a pixie.
Yeah, I mean, that's super cool.
It's super easy to turn into a pixie. You have that shape, you have that movement. It's completely up to you, okay? And before I run out of time, I want to show you a technique with the texturizer that gives you even more movement. So we have a 15-tooth texturizer, right? So what you could do now, so we all know that we have short, long, right? Something you can do to create even more texture is go inside of section 1. And we're going to go inside of section 1. And we're going to go in with that 15-tooth. And we're going to create short inside of long. Does that make sense?
That's getting very meta. I like it. Okay. Short and short.
Short. So we have short inside of long, regardless of what section it is. So we go in, we just section this out. Again, now we're in section 2. It's even longer. So I can just go in here with this 15-tooth, nice and square, and just create that texture inside of texture.
See, that's good to know too, because I know when I got my alkali and Sharkfin shears, I know I got not 1, but 2 texture shears with it. So it's kind of nice to see like, oh, this is what I would use this one for versus this one. And it's nice to kind of see like what something with like 15 teeth in there is going to do, and that it's going to maybe remove a little bit more versus like something that's going to be like the 28 one that you use more for blending. So right. Thank you for showing that. I appreciate that.
We have a wonderful class for free on our website and on our YouTube that goes through specifically a 40-tooth, a 28, a 15, a 7, and then an eraser, which is a double-sided blending shear. We talk specifically how it removes hair, what it leaves behind, what you might use it for, what I like using it for that most people don't even think about using it for, etc. It's a really fun class to check out, and it's only like I think it's only like 7 or 8 minutes long, and it'll give you a really powerful understanding of texture shears.
Awesome. And then like while you were mentioning that too, like we will be putting all of these up on YouTube at some point soon. I know like because we have a partnership with Sharkfin, so we've got the alkali and Sharkfin shears. It's nice that we get to do some stuff together. But I was going to say too, we do have 𝒘𝒊𝒊𝒃𝒆 auditions that are starting today, which is so exciting because I love seeing what everybody creates, and I love getting to meet everyone that joins our community. And from that, we do have Alchemist of the Year, and we have a 2-day symposium coming up in September in California. So these are all 𝒘𝒊𝒊𝒃𝒆 exclusive things. Yes. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you're joining the 𝒘𝒊𝒊𝒃𝒆.
So we're coming in with some plump now.
Perfect.
It's a spritz, but volume, right? So I want to blow dry some volume into the top of that.
And someone's asking, what 2 texture shears would you recommend to start with?
A very good shear to start with is a 28 tooth because it's versatile. The 40 tooth is more of just like a blending shear. So a lot of times people get that and you're kind of limited on what you can use it for. A 28 tooth can still be used for blending out lines, but you can also do a complete scissor over comb haircut with it. Also, it does a really good job of removing bulk and weight in long layers and keeping them connected, but you get a ton of movement and texture out of it. So I always recommend a 28 tooth unless you have a large clientele that has thick, coarse, curly hair and it's short, because with a 28 tooth in coarse, curly hair, you can actually see the teeth prints.
Ooh, okay, good to know.
So the only way I would recommend a 40 is if you had a large portion of clientele with short hair, but was very, very textured or curly. Because believe it or not, those teeth are going to show up in that pattern. So that's I would use a 40 tooth for. But the 28 is a very versatile tool. Scissor over comb, blending out lines, connecting layers, removing bulk and weight in somebody who has a ton of hair. And every time you cut it, she comes back in and says, it's just so heavy. It's just so heavy, right? And you just debulk, 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 debulk. So a 28 tooth is very versatile. A 15 tooth and a 7, they're specialty tools, family. They're especially a 7 tooth. A 7-tooth texturizing shear it's a specialty tool. When I was in full time, I maybe had 5 or 6 guests that I would use that shear on. But if you're someone who does a lot of short hair with texture, pixies, crops, stuff like that, the 7-tooth is going to be amazing. So as you see, I started out just blow drying for volume. Now I'm just coming in and putting everything forward. And again, you should already be able to see that texture and movement before I ever touch product to it. The product, family, is just to enhance the look. When I first started doing hair, I was a really good blow dryer. I was a mediocre hair cutter. And I worked my tail off with a brown brush and worked and worked and worked. As I've been cutting hair longer, I've become a better hair cutter, and my finished style isn't so dependent on 100% perfect blow dry, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. You got to make sure that architecture's there before you decorate the house. Yes. Is kind of how I always think about that.
So then to finish, I want to see that texture and movement in there already. I can even see it through the side.
Oh yeah, Oscar's looking fresh there.
Okay, so hang on, let me do this better. Let me bring in one of these lights. So I want to see that texture and movement through there already. So then when I go in and finish with teas,
oh, you're still calling it tease. It's flirt.
Sorry, flirt. My bad. It changed.
I'd rather be a flirt than a tease. Just saying.
It was tease for the first 3 years I was using it.
I know, we go and change things on you. I just got to keep you on your toes,
Yes. And then, you can come in here and you can kind of creatively do what you want here. It's all up to you. You start seeing different shapes in there, right? You see these little teardrop shapes that people are cutting in, or these different little pieces of texture. That's, you can create that however you want. If you find too, couple of hot tips. What you may find the first time you try this is the weight and length you left through the round of the head is too much. So then you can just go back through there with your texturizing shear or your regular cutting shear and you can just slide cut that weight out of there. And what happens is when you do that, you get even more texture and movement, but you're relieving that weight through there. And
That looks really good.
I know that you would go in here and clean up the hairline and do that stuff. I'm not going to take time from this class to do that, right? My focus is more on accomplishing the finished look of this haircut. So you remember on this side, it was a little heavier and I left that weight through there. So you can start pulling that through the top. You can start pulling it through the sides to create movement and texture, however you want to do that.
No, that looks so cool. And it's nice, like you really can see the texture, and it's nice to see how you kind of brought it out and how you actually utilized our products to bring out a haircut. And that's kind of the perfect marriage right there. So that's awesome. And everybody's kind of saying that they really like this haircut. So
yeah,
huzzah.
I would encourage you to check it out. We have a video of it as well. Check it out. It comes across a little better because we're in a better lit space. It's professionally shot. It's a completely white background. We have multiple camera angles, so you can really see the haircut come to life. Not that you can't during this, but you know, through here, it's like that could be the worst haircut in the world, honestly, family, and you guys wouldn't be able to tell because it's a mannequin. You know what I mean? So the main thing here is just understanding the shape we're trying to achieve through the back, where we want it to connect. And that's it. That's it. From there, you get creative freedom on what you want to do. You know, if you want the front to be a little shorter, if you want more texture and movement, it's all up to you at that point. You're the professional.
No, this is awesome. Honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to spend your Monday afternoon with us. We really appreciate it. And, you know, also we're so excited that we get to give away a pair of shears. I'm like pumped about that. I think everyone's been pumped. I know everyone's been kind of commenting about that in the classes too. So well, I'm really excited.
I'll say this and then I'll be done, I promise. If you don't win the set of shears, I'm going to give you a promo code right now. You buy any shear using this promo code, you get 2 free texturizers and a free razor.
Ooh.
That promo code is RED, R-E-D.
All right, R-E-D.
R-E-D. If you buy any shear from our beauty line, including the alkali shear, and use that promo code, you'll get 2 free texturizers and a free razor.
Oh my God, that's okay. Everyone's like losing their mind in the chat right now. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Willy. I really appreciate that. And we'll be posting this up on YouTube, hopefully in the near future. And then everybody, let's go creep on the Alkali main page and see me pull from my Harry Potter goblet of fire and get us some shark fins. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon, Willy.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Remember, guys, it's nice to be nice.
It is nice to be nice. All right. Bye there.
Bye-bye.